Hey guys, James here with Waterford Business Solutions. As we come to the close of January here, we close out kind of the end of year concern of taxes for employees and contractors, and we move to the end of year season for getting your business tax filings and personal tax filings done. And there's really two different dates that matter here depending on your entity structure and your entity type. So we really wanted to dive in and talk about when these are due, either for the tax filing or for the extension that's due. And so we're going to talk about both the tax filing, the extension, payments, all of that today in this week's video for you. As we're closing all of this out, we are rapidly approaching where extensions are going to have to go in if your books are not ready. And while an extension sounds great, it's generally not as beneficial as most people think. So if you don't have your books in order and don't understand where the business stands from a financial standpoint, from a tax standpoint, it's definitely time to make sure you either get someone in-house to help you or you start looking elsewhere. And if you need that help, feel free to reach out to us here at Waterford Business Solutions. We'd be happy to see what we can do to get your books cleaned up and help you. You can give us a call at 864-351-0852 or shoot us an email at info@waterfordbusiness.com so we can help you out. Now, as far as the tax filings go, like I said, there's two important dates, March 16th and April 15th. Now, everybody knows, in theory, the April 15th date. That is the deadline for most people needing to worry about taxes because that's when personal taxes are due. But when you're a business owner, you may have to also worry about the March 16th deadline. Now, both of these dates vary kind of year by year because if the 15th falls on a weekend, they're going to push it to the next Monday. That's why this year it's March 16th instead of March 15th. But both of these dates are going to be very important. Now let's start with the March 16th, 2026 deadline because that is what's coming up first. And for the businesses that this affects, you have to do this before you can do your personal tax return. So any business that has multiple partners, so whether it be an informal partnership, a formal partnership, a multi-member LLC, or even an S Corp with either one member or multiple S Corp members, all of those business types are going to be required to either file their final tax return, their official tax return, by March 16th or file an extension by March 16th. And this all has to go to the federal government. Now, the benefit for this is all four of those entity types, they don't owe any income taxes to the federal government. Now, you may owe taxes to the state depending on where you're located. California, depending on your income in Texas, New York, New Jersey, those do have state required taxes. So do make sure you're paying attention to that. But you can go ahead in theory and file an extension on those business types, on those returns by March 16th so that you have until September 15th to go ahead and get everything filed there. But an extension is only extending how long you have. If you have any state taxes, anything like that owed with those filings, you need to make sure that you're still getting those paid in a timely manner, because if you don't, there will be penalties and interest on not paying in the tax liability there. So definitely make sure that you stay on top and pay attention to that there. Very important to keep in mind there. Now, all of those entities are required to file by March 16th because when they file, all those entities, they're either filing an 1120 or a 1065 return. 1120s are going to be for S Corps and multi-member S Corps where there's multiple shareholders. That's going to be an 1120S. And then 1065 is going to be for any type of partnership that doesn't have an S Corp or an S Corp election. Both of those types are going to issue K1s to their owners, shareholders, members, partners, whatever your definition is there, because both of those tax return types are pass-through tax returns. From a federal government standpoint, they do not owe any taxes. The ownership is the one that owes the taxes. So they all have to issue K-1s to their ownership so that the ownership can then claim that income, their share of the income, on their personal returns for April. So that's why we've got the March 16th deadline, so that there's a month from when that is done to when the personal returns are done, so that the ownership can then go ahead and complete their own returns and get those K-1s put on there. So March 16th is going to be an important deadline if you are an S Corp, have an S Corp election, or a multi-member LLC, or a unofficial partnership, or a formal partnership. Any of those 5 types of businesses, you've got to get your extension in by March 16th, or even more preferably, get your tax return filed by March 16th of 2026. Now, for the rest of our businesses, single member LLCs, sole proprietorships, unofficial businesses, anything like that, you're generally going to file a Schedule C on your personal tax return, on your 1040 tax return. Same thing with our corporations. Your 1120, both of those returns, your 1040 with the Schedule C and your 1120, not your 1120S, but your 1120, are going to be due on April 15th of 2026 this year. That's going to be a Wednesday. So you've either got to go ahead and get the actual returns filed by April 15th or get the extensions in. Now, if you are a owner of one of these other businesses that are filing an 1120S or a 1065, you've got to make sure that that return is filed first so that you've got the K-1 to claim on your personal return for that April 15th deadline. If you don't have that information, you can't go ahead and put in the personal return because you don't have all the tax information. So you would have to extend your tax return. Now, big difference between our March 16th deadline and our April 15th deadline of having tax returns or extensions in. Like I said, with the March 16th deadline, most of these entity types, unless it's a state requirement, don't have federal taxes that are due or any type of tax that is due unless it's a state requirement. However, with 1040 returns and 1120 returns, those do have taxes due. An extension only gives you time to file those taxes. So instead of the taxes being required to be filed by April 15th, now they don't have to be filed until October 15th. But with that, it does not change when the tax liability is due. So no matter what, whatever your tax liability is going to be when you file your tax return, that has got to be paid in to the federal and state governments generally by April 15th. Some states wait until May 1st or May 31st. It depends on the state. But the federal, at least, is going to have to be paid in by April 15th. Just because your books are not ready does not give an excuse to not have the taxes that you owe paid in by April 15th. You still, if you are doing an extension, need to make sure whatever taxes you owe are paid in by April 15th. Because if you miss that deadline, if you do not get those taxes paid in by April 15th, then you will be charged penalties and interest from April 15th until the day you pay those taxes. So if you do an extension on your tax return, don't pay in what taxes you owe on April 15th. Don't file your tax return until October 15th and pay for it until October 15th. You're going to get 6 months of interest and penalties for not paying that tax liability on a timely basis, and thus pay even more in taxes. So it's super, 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 super important that just because you extend, you also need to have an idea, fairly close idea, and it's better to overpay than underpay, of what you're going to owe in taxes when you finally file that tax return. Otherwise, you're going to be paying substantially more for your tax return. So please keep that in mind, that you need, if you're going to do an extension, make sure you're still paying in the taxes that you owe. So again, any business, sole proprietorship, single member LLC, unofficial business, if you're getting a 1099 and you don't have a business or anything like that, anything like that is going to file a Schedule C on your 1040 tax return. And any C Corp that doesn't have an S Corp election, but any C Corp, they're 1120. Both of those types of returns are going to be due on April 15th or have an extension due on April 15th. One other important thing to keep in mind here is extensions are due on April 15th. If you do not get those extensions in, you can no longer extend your tax return. I have clients come to me all the time on April 20th. Even if you came to me on April 16th, they come to me and they say, oops, I forgot, can you file me an extension? The answer is no. Extensions must be filed by April 15th. If I don't know you need an extension, if your accountant doesn't know you need an extension, if you don't file the extension, then you can't file an extension after March 16th or April 15th for the respective tax returns. Without an extension, you now have penalties for every month that these returns are late. It's not as big of a deal when we're talking C Corp taxes and 1040 returns. Those are generally like a small penalty, a percentage penalty. But with S Corps and partnerships, that is a penalty per month that it is not filed per shareholder. So, and it's a 3-figure penalty per month. So if you don't file an extension and you wait until September 15th to get that return in, you're going to have 6 months, 5 to 6 months of accumulated penalties, probably equating to somewhere around $800 to $900 for an S Corp or partnership for not filing that extension or getting it in on time. And that's per partner. So if you've got 2 partners, 3 partners, 4 partners, multiply that out. So it can get super, super, super expensive. So it's really important that you stay on top, pay attention to this, and make sure that you are ready to file on time, or at least understand the tax liability that you suspect to have to get the money paid in on time. So keep all of that in mind there. As always, guys, I hope you found this informational. We really like you to understand not just the dates, but why these dates are so important. That's how we run our entire business, is we want to help you understand the reason behind all of this and not just make sure it's done for you. I really do invite you to go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel here at Waterford Business Solutions. Turn on those notifications. We put out videos every single week so that you can get information, you can better understand your business, taxes, performance, KPIs, any type of business metric. We really work with you to understand there. So really important to keep all of that in mind. Also, if you need help with these extensions or need help with getting ready for the end of the year or getting your books in order, don't hesitate to reach out. The longer you wait, the bigger the problem's going to be. You can't ignore the issue because it will eventually come up and you'll have to deal with it. I've had clients come to me without filing for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and it's got to be done, and it costs them so much more than if they got on top of it and just took care of the issue in the first place. So the more you delay, the bigger the issue's ultimately going to become. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you, guide you through, walk you through. Whether you work with us or someone else, just go ahead and get on top of it. If you want to work with us, go ahead and give us a call here at Waterford Business Solutions at 864-351-0852, or give us an email at info@waterfordbusiness.com.